Hello again, YouTubers. I'm SpongeBob 11 back here again on the SpongeBob channel for our review of Kamp Koral, SpongeBob's Under Years episode number 8, Pat's a Little Sinker, and Kamp SpongeBob. Mrs. Puff gives swimming lessons to Patrick after realizing he never got his swim badge, and SpongeBob finds himself all alone in the camp, but that doesn't stop him from having a blast. So, got lots to get to in this video, let's get started right now. Pat's a Little Sinker is centered around swimming in Lake Yuckymuck. So the episode basically starts with all the various characters of Kamp Koral jumping into Lake Yuckymuck because it is time to swim. And I really like this part where Squidward was already in the pool, I mean in the lake, and he was hoping for some alone time, but unfortunately everyone else showed up, including Bubble Bass, which was cannonballing like a comet towards him. This was epic. So everyone filled up the lake, and Mrs. Puff, of course, is in charge of making sure all the kids in the lake are safe. Then we are treated to the epic view of Sandy, SpongeBob, and Patrick rushing towards the lake, and of course they are ready to have lots of fun. However, unbeknownst to Sandy and SpongeBob, Patrick actually doesn't know how to swim. Although they do encourage him to get in the water, which promptly results in Patrick actually just sinking into the water. So when they go take a look underneath the water surface, they realize that Patrick just can't swim, right? So it's Mrs. Puff to the rescue. Mrs. Puff manages to rescue Patrick after slapping him a few times and asking him to wake up. When actually Patrick is already awake. I thought it was kind of funny. And when Patrick was asked to show his swim badge, this is what it looks like. And obviously he made it himself. So clearly he had not earned his swim badge, which means he belongs in the polywog pool with Pearl. And of course, I like the scene though, where Patrick was so sad and Pearl's just there comforting Patrick. I really like Pearl in this series. She's just so, I don't even know what the word is to use to describe her, but I like her as a character in this series. Mrs. Puff takes on the task of teaching Patrick to swim. However, no matter what Mrs. Puff does, Patrick keeps sinking, even into sand, which doesn't really make much sense. Maybe it's because when Patrick lies flat on the ground, his weight is too heavy for the sand to take. I don't know. And the funniest part of this is that when Patrick drools, he literally sinks into his own pool of drool, which is clearly not possible because the boardwalk is right underneath his pool of drool. But yeah, it's SpongeBob, right? It's a cartoon, so we should expect silly things like that. Anyways, Patrick is dumped back into the polywog pool, in which Pearl offers Patrick her Blinky, or what is that thing called? That thing, the baby thing. Yeah. So Sandy and SpongeBob come up with a new plan. This plan involves them sinking to the bottom of Lake Yuckymuck and then partying there. So they get the canoe out, sneak into the lake after creating a distraction, and then they sink themselves into the bottom of the lake and promptly start playing volleyball under the lake, having a picnic, and even having a session of karate. So I really like this part. Of course, it makes sense because although the lake itself, I'm not sure how they can have water in water, so it doesn't really make sense, but at least the characters do point out that they can breathe even while in the water. So technically, it's not really a hazard if Patrick sinks into the water because he can breathe, right? He's a sea creature. So word gets out about the underwater dance party, and everyone else in the lake comes down to the bottom of the lake to party, but eventually that arouses the attention of Mrs. Puff, who thinks that they are drowning. So she goes and rescues them, and they invite her to join a dance party, and eventually she finds out that they intentionally sank themselves to the bottom of the lake, which of course pissed her off really bad. I'm not sure how this happened, but the water was then absorbed by Mrs. Puff. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think pufferfish can absorb water. I'm not exactly sure. Perhaps they can, okay? Seems like pufferfish do have the capacity to absorb water as well, and everyone else is dumped in the polywog pool. So except for Patrick though, Patrick has now successfully learned to swim in Mrs. Puff's belly. Well, I mean, kudos to Patrick. At least he learned how to swim, so he definitely deserves his swim badge right now. So this episode, I think it was very straightforward. I will give it a 7 out of 10. I really like the idea of Patrick's silly shenanigans. Mrs. Puff being the adult in the room there, trying to keep the kids safe and all that. So it's a very straightforward episode. Nothing too much I can say about it. So yeah, 7 out of 10. So next up we have Camp SpongeBob. And this episode reminds all of us a lot about the season 6 episode, Gone. So in this episode, the campers at Kamp Koral are on a field trip to Colonial Bottomsburg, and everyone has their buddies, including Patrick, who seemingly thinks that a box of Kelpo is SpongeBob. And yeah, so going back to the dingy cabin, we see SpongeBob, who just wakes up and realizes that he is late. Unfortunately, SpongeBob tries to run for the bus, but he misses it, and therefore he is left all alone in Kamp Koral. However, he takes it in his stride. I mean, in true SpongeBob fashion, tries to make Kamp Koral into Camp SpongeBob, and even tries to play a baseball game with himself, which is kind of weird. But he realizes that it's just not the same if no one's there. However, he does find Gary, who wanders out of the forest, and together they go jellyfishing in Jelly Meadow, where Gary successfully catches a jellyfish, while in SpongeBob's case he gets caught by a jellyfish. They do some painting and even play baseball with each other. This is when a whole bunch of the forest animals show up. So we have that monster from the very first episode, we have the mammoth mollusks, sea bears, more snails, as well as the sea bunnies. So all of these animals are then inducted into Camp SpongeBob, and they also partake in all sorts of different activities like bubble blowing. I found this really cool. So the sea bunnies blew a bubble shaped like SpongeBob, and they played like the SpongeBob theme as the background music. That was epic. I have like jellyfishing with the sea bear, sea bunny, and mammoth mollusk, and SpongeBob, who was being chased by them eventually, was hiding in a husk of corn, which I thought was really creative. You know, camouflage skills right there. We have 2 mammoth mollusks like playing volleyball, and I thought this one scene was also really cool. This sea bear was helping Gary paint his shell with some hot rod flames. So Gary's a hot rod now, pseudo hot rod. Things go relatively smoothly, and eventually it's time for lunch. However, Plankton just thinks that all the animals are just the kids when they're really hungry, and therefore they're really ugly. So Plankton feeds them slop. Things don't really go well after the animals start fighting, which I thought was, expected. They're animals, right? So, they do what they do. And so to put an end to this situation, Gary brings out Squidward's clarinet. Pretty smart, huh, Gary? So SpongeBob plays a lullaby to quell the anger within the animals, and these animals then take residence within all the camp cabins. And so then we see the campers and Mrs. Puff and Mr. Krabs also in all their colonial fashion there, coming back to camp, and they are completely freaked out because they came back to camp to find animals sleeping in their cabins. Meanwhile, SpongeBob is perfectly fine with it. He has Gary there, and he's even sleeping with the sea bear. So this episode I thought was even more simplistic than the first one, and I'm not sure, I didn't really like the episode Gone in season 6, and I don't really like the idea here. I feel like this episode would have been so much better if they had taken the different approach to it. Specifically, if SpongeBob actually went on that field trip. I would love to see what happened if SpongeBob did go on that field trip and not just hang out with a bunch of animals. I mean, it's not like a terrible episode, but there was a lot of potential at the start. But then I realized, oh wait, no. Yeah, they kind of threw out that potential out the window, because the whole point was to make sure that SpongeBob was the only one in the camp. And as I said, I'm not a fan of that idea. Maybe one day we will find out what Colonial Bottomsburg is like, but I doubt it, right? So comment down below what you guys thought about this episode. I don't really have much for this one. I will give it a 6 out of 10. Not clearly it had so much potential, but it didn't take that avenue, so that's kind of disappointing. Yeah, so comment in the box below what you guys think about these 2 episodes. Did you like them? Did you not like them? And I will be back with episode 9's review tomorrow, so make sure to stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you haven't, like, favorite, comment, etc. Keep around here on SpongeBob 101, and, well, till the next one. See ya!